What if the only reason something sounds crazy is because we don't have the tools to measure it yet? Because think about it. At one point, electricity sounded crazy. Germs sounded crazy. Even the idea that the earth moves sounded crazy. These were things people couldn't see, couldn't measure, couldn't prove at the time, so they questioned them, dismissed them, or labeled them as something else. So what if some of the things we call mystical today aren't fake? They're just not understood yet. I think humans naturally do this thing where we put reality into a box. Not because we're trying to limit ourselves, but because we need structure. We need something we can explain, something we can agree on, something we can point to and say, this is real. So we build systems, models, explanations. And over time, we get so comfortable with those explanations that we start treating them like they're the full picture. But they're not. They're just what we've been able to confirm so far. And anything outside of that, we label it. We call it mystical. We call it spiritual. We call it not proven. But that label might say more about our current limitations than it does about the actual thing we're trying to understand. Because the truth is, what we call mysticism today is actually older than science. Traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism weren't just random belief systems people made up out of nowhere. They were built on observation. Just not the kind of observation we're used to. Instead of studying the outside world, they studied the inside. They paid attention to their thoughts, their awareness, their sense of self. They asked questions like, who is thinking? Who is observing? What is consciousness? And that's not unscientific. That's still observation. It's just directed inward instead of outward. But at some point, everything shifted. Once we developed tools to measure the external world, once we figured out how to test, repeat, and verify things, those methods became the standard for what we consider real. If something couldn't be measured, it became unreliable. If it couldn't be repeated, it became questionable. If it couldn't be verified by others, it got pushed to the side. And to be fair, that approach worked. It gave us technology, medicine, systems, and a deeper understanding of the physical world. But there was a trade-off. We became extremely good at understanding what's outside of us, and a lot less confident exploring what's inside. Because internal experience doesn't follow the same rules. You can't measure awareness the way you measure temperature. You can't put consciousness under a microscope the same way you study cells. It's subjective, it varies, it's personal. So instead of refining that kind of observation, we labeled it and moved on. But just because something is hard to measure doesn't mean it's not real. It might just mean our tools aren't built for it yet. Or maybe it's not something that can be measured in the same way at all. Because consciousness isn't like an object. It's the thing experiencing the object. And that changes the whole conversation. Now, this is where things start to get uncomfortable. There are people who've had near-death experiences, and a lot of them describe something similar. They say they left their body. They describe looking down at the room, seeing doctors moving, hearing conversations happening around them. And in some cases, they later confirm details they shouldn't have known. Conversations in other rooms. Specific actions that took place while they were supposedly unconscious. Now think about that for a second. Even if only a small percentage of those cases are accurate, that would mean awareness might not be as locked into the body as we think it is. And if that's true, then we're missing something. Now at the same time, we have to stay grounded. The brain is powerful. It can create extremely real experiences, especially under stress or trauma. So it's possible that some of these moments are the brain trying to make sense of chaos. But even with that explanation, it doesn't fully close the case. And that's the honest position. We don't fully know. So instead of jumping to a conclusion, it might be better to just recognize that there's a gap in our understanding. Now bring it closer to you, your own mind. Think about your last thought. Did you choose it, or did it just show up? Because if you really pay attention, thoughts don't feel like something you're building step by step. They just appear, and then you notice them. So then what does that make you? Are you the thinker, or the one observing the thoughts? Because those are not the same thing. You can watch your thoughts, which means you're not your thoughts. You can watch your emotions. You can notice your reactions. You can even step back and observe your own identity changing over time. So what's doing the observing? And if you keep going with that, everything you can observe can't be you. Your thoughts, observed. Your emotions, observed. Your identity, constantly changing, also observed. So what's left? Just awareness. No label, no form. Just the fact that you're aware right now. And that's something we still don't fully understand. Science can map the brain. It can show activity. It can correlate certain patterns with certain experiences. But it still can't fully answer one question. Why does it feel like something to be alive? Not how it works, but why there's an experience at all. So what if we've been looking at this backwards? What if consciousness isn't something the brain creates, but something the brain filters, like a receiver, and your body is just the point of view, not the source? Now go back to that original idea. What if we're the eyes of something bigger? Not in a religious sense necessarily, but in terms of awareness itself. What if consciousness isn't inside you? You're inside it. Experiencing reality from a specific angle, like a perspective within something larger. Now that doesn't mean every thought is being controlled. It doesn't mean you don't have agency. You still make choices. You still shape your life. You still decide what you do with the thoughts that appear. But it does raise a different kind of question. Maybe we're not as separate as we think. Maybe the limitation isn't reality itself, but how we're trying to understand it. We've built incredible tools to explore the external world. But when it comes to the internal experience, the thing that's actually living all of this, we're still in the early stages. So maybe the real question isn't, what's real? Maybe it's, how much of reality are we actually capable of understanding right now? Because if history has shown us anything, it's that reality doesn't change. Our ability to see it does. And we might still be at the beginning of that.